In prior activities, we've been working with file and folder permissions with regards to shares or shared permissions. In this activity, we're going to take that one step further and work with just simply file and folder permissions on the local file system. When file shares and file permissions will end up working together to provide proper access to a specific user or a group in your environment. So it's important to understand both sets. Here we are in our test perm folder that we had previously created. And the first thing we need to do is come to View. And under View on the right-hand side, we see there's a box that says File Name Extensions. And we want that to be checked. So go ahead and check File Name Extensions. Once we've done that, we will see there is our perm file 1 that we had previously created. And now it says permfile1.txt. The file extension tells us what type of file it is. While we're here, what we want to do is right click in the background and say new text document. And in this case, we want to type in a file name of test batch.bat and then delete the .txt. So when I press enter, it will ask me, are you sure you want to change the file name extension? I will say yes. And then now my two files will be permfile1.txt and testbatch.bat. A batch file is what's known, BAT file is what's known as a Windows batch file. And it is essentially a very lightweight type of scripting that we can use in our environment. Now that I have this batch file, I'm going to right click on it and say edit. And this opens up in a text editor. I will start off with an ampersand space echo. This is a test batch file. Enter, and then another ampersand and pause. Once that's done, I'm going to go ahead and save it. Yes. And I'm going to double click it just to see what it does. And we can see it pops up a command prompt that says this is a test batch file. Press any key to continue. And if I press enter or any other key, it closes on out. So basically it's a small batch file or small script that just runs and then goes away. Now that we have an example file that we can start working on, now we can start changing our file permissions. So I'm going to right click testbatch.bat and go to properties. On the security tab, I'm going to click advanced. Now, previously we had looked at this. For instance, if I look at users and everything is grayed out because it's all inherited permissions. What I want to do is I want to click this button right down here in the lower left, that says disable inheritance. So I'm going to click that. It then asks me what I want to do with all the permissions that are being inherited right now. All the permissions that we got from the folder above us, what do we want to do with that? I'm going to say, go ahead and convert those into permissions for this file. At this point, if I look back at users, I see now things are not grayed out and I can actually start making changes. I'm going to OK and OK to get back to the test batch properties. And on the security tab, under the system administrator users, I'm going to click edit. Under users, we look at the permissions, and right now the users have two options, and two options only, read and execute and read. What I want to do is I want to remove the ability to execute or the ability to run this file. So I'm going to clear that checkbox and then say OK and OK. Now that that's done, I'm going to log off. So right here on the start menu, click on my administrator and say sign out. And then I'll log in. And now I want to log in as a test user, who we had previously created. Because that was our first time logging in as test user, it took a few seconds, so I paused the video and now we're back up and running. I'm going to open up File Explorer and I'm going to go to this PC, test vol, test perm, and I'm now going to try to run my batch file. If I double click this, I get an error saying I don't have appropriate permissions. And it even says, you may not have appropriate permissions to access this item. Interesting. I'll go ahead and say OK. I can, however, right click and edit to see that I can still read the contents of the file. Remember, there were the two settings for the user. There was read and then read and execute, or essentially run. Here I can read it, but I cannot run it. See, the lab guide also mentions that if we right click on the background, we will see that new file no longer exists in this folder. I only have the option for a new folder. So in theory, I can't create additional files. However, one thing I can do, if I come back to test batch, I right click and edit. Instead of saying file save, to save the file and save, which gives me an error. What I can do is I can go to File, Save, and then I can change the file name to New Batch instead of Test Batch. Add Save, and in this case, it now saves. At this point, I can close the file, and I believe if I double click, oh, I misnamed it. Let me try that again. Let me delete new batch, edit, file, save, and I do want this to be new batch, but I do not want that to be a text file. So I have to change to all files, and then it's going to be new batch.bat. There we are. Let's actually go to view and file name extensions as well. At this point, I believe I can actually double click new batch and it runs successfully. However, the original test batch still does not run. So I was not able to run test batch nor modify it. However, I could save as a different name the same file. If I check the properties for new batch, we will see why. Let's see, security and advanced. And we will see right now the owner is test user, who I'm now logged in as because I'm the one that saved the file. The owner now has full control to this files, and therefore I have access to this file. To further explore our permissions, I'm going to go ahead and disable inheritance and say yes, convert the permissions, and OK. Back at the security tab, I'm going to click edit. And here where I see test user, I'm going to remove myself as test user. I'm going to remove myself from the file and then say OK. And excuse me. I also wanted to, back into edit, also remove the users group. So the only system and administrators have access. I'll say OK and OK. And now when I try to run new batch, now I get a similar error to what I got with regards to our test batch. Now this is one of where the benefits of being the creator owner come in. Now I can go back into new batch, right click properties, security, edit, and then I can add test user back in because I am the creator owner of this file. I can add test user, full control. Why not? And OK. And OK. And now I can now run the new batch file, same as previously. So there's a lot of fun you can have with file permissions. However, it is easy to get very lost and confused in some of the settings.